All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Global Reality with me, your host, Josh Reeves. This is the Thursday, April the 28th, 2016 edition of the show. Thank you very much for joining us here for this edition of the broadcast. We've got a few interesting topics to discuss with you here on the show, so looking forward to getting into all that with you here on the broadcast today. So thanks so much for being with us. TheGlobalReality.com is my website. That's theglobalreality.com. All things pertaining to my work are up there. All the ways to support our work and downloads and buy all my movies and copies of the films and audiobooks. And you could also get a subscription and membership to our archives, our 128K high quality member archives, which are lower quality shows than what we upload on YouTube and whatnot. We don't put every show up on YouTube, and I upload ones to YouTube when it's very important, but for the most part, that's where they go first, and then later on, we'll put up videos on YouTube for the important shows. If you click on the subscribe button on the top right hand side of the page at my website, that'll open up a menu, and you can peruse all the different selections in there for the audio archives. The shows go there immediately when they're recorded, and there's now an app available for our archives for the Podbean. You can search that in the App Store or in whatever platform you get apps from whatever phone or type of phone you have, whatever. It does Android, and there's also an iPhone version and whatnot, but it's a Podbean app, and then all you have to do is you download the Podbean app, and then you search for Josh Reeves, and then it'll bring up the Global Reality, Josh Reeves, and then you sign into the archives, and then boom, you can listen to the shows and everything in the archives, every show in the archives, which goes back, I think it goes back 2012. Anyway, there's a ton of shows in there. And you can listen to those on your phone. You know, if you got one of those little Bluetooth things, you listen to it in your car, wherever you want to go. It's kind of a game changer because it's something I didn't have to build, and it comes with the archives. And I don't know how long it's been there, but certainly hasn't been there, I don't think, very long. But it's not something I knew about. But now that there's an app, it makes it that much easier for you to be able to listen to the show. To me, that's worth the $10 a month to get the subscription. And of course, it gets cheaper if you buy 6 months or a year. And you can get a 1-year archive membership and a free download of my new film, The Spellcasters, as well as your name and the special thanks if you contribute $100 by no later than Sunday. So get in on that deal, and don't forget about our mega prize pack worth $750 we're giving away to the highest contributor to our operating costs no later than Sunday. But we have to have our full operating cost amount in here by Sunday, no later. And we need to reach 100% of our goal. So we were getting closer and closer and closer to running out of time. Yesterday's show, I talked about a lot of important stuff in that show. And so definitely go back and listen to that. The past couple of shows have been important. So if you haven't heard those, definitely go back and listen to those. If you're hearing this one, go back and listen to the last two shows as well. That print stuff, man, it still blows my mind. You know, because I talked about yesterday, the person's name I was trying to think of yesterday, of course, was Philip Seymour Hoffman. I just drew a blank at that moment. But the point I was making about that, I had talked about somebody who'd left a comment on Facebook saying, oh, you shouldn't be proud of predicting that this was the case and blah, 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 blah. And I talked about the reasons why, but what I was getting at with mentioning Philip Seymour Hoffman was that when the film The Master came out a year before he died, I said on my radio show, and that show's out there, that, you know, I was like, you know, I'm worried for this guy. They don't like anybody portraying their God in any kind of negative light, you know, and I said they may kill him. Well, of course, when I was on British television last year on Channel 5 on their Conspiracy, the Hollywood Files show. You can watch that. It's on YouTube. Just type Josh Reeves, UK television, UK TV. Conspiracy, the Hollywood Files, Josh Reeves. You'll find it. They took that, me saying that a year before he died, into me saying that I believed Scientology killed Philip Seymour Hoffman. And it's funny that because they cut and edited everything I talked about. I mean, I remember walking out of that interview with a big old grin, shit-eating smile and grin on my face. And my girlfriend being like, what are you smiling about? What's so funny? I'm like, they're never in a million years going to show that on TV. Because, I mean, I fucking hit it hard. I laid it out, man. Talked all about the CIA stuff, laid all that out. I was like, there's no way they're going to let this stuff go on TV. And, of course, they chopped it and edited it and said, Josh Reeves believes Scientology killed Philip Seymour Hoffman. Yet they never play a clip or actually prove that I said that, because they can't, because I did not say that. But a year before, I said, you know what, this is not good. Well, my point of that and bringing that up is that this is the kind of things, I don't have a crystal ball and I'm not able to make these kind of predictions, say this stuff, because I'm special. And that's what people need to understand. I do these things and continually bring them up and bring them to people's attention because this is a trait and a technique and a ability that every single person alive on this planet needs. It's one of the most ultimate weapons that we have against these people, and it's nothing that takes anything other than being resilient, doing your homework, and staying on top of this information. And if every single person had that ability to be able to do like I and other people do, and look at this and go, oh gosh, these things are going to happen, and then they happen, you would have a huge opportunity where people could no longer have the wool pulled over their eyes. And that's what I'm trying to do here, is to keep people from having the fucking wool pulled over their eyes constantly by the media and the powers that be and everything else. So, yes, when I tell you, look, I called it, there it is, and you hear me predict these things, and then they turn out just like the Charlie Sheen thing. I told you what? There was something going around about a famous star has AIDS, and I said, I guarantee it's Charlie, and I laid it on, and boom, boom, it happened. I laid out all the stuff with Prince and AIDS on the show the day after he died, the 22nd, and then boom, it comes out yesterday. Mainstream news. That's the point I'm making. Is that these are abilities, the ability to be able to see things before you're told about them and be able to put the pieces together is a trait that every person needs to have. Because this, in the end, will be the undoing of the powers that be. When enough people have the ability to be able to see the real truth of things on their own, lies will no longer be possible, ladies and gentlemen. This is the power that I'm trying to get each and every one of you out there to obtain for yourself. And if some random nut job on fucking Fedbook, Facebook doesn't get that, that's their problem, not mine. Bottom line. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about that because I'd forgotten yesterday. I was trying to think of Philip Seymour Hoffman's name. And again, I've made all kinds of predictions and talked about things coming down the road. I mean, I predicted they would invade Yemen back in, 2009? About a year after Obama had been in office. I predicted that, and people were going, Yemen? Why Yemen? Well, they were digging around doing archaeological discoveries there right before 9/11, and were finding evidence that the Ark of the Covenant was there. And then you learn that those people in Yemen around that spot, the Palace of Sheba, where the Ark of the Covenant might possibly be located, you understand those people have been trained generationally for thousands of years to protect that area. So when people would go on the media and tell us, there's 8-year-olds in Yemen who have AK-47s and they're evil terrorists, Al-Qaedas, and they want to kill us for our freedoms, we need to send in airstrikes and white phosphorus, which Obama, by the way, did in 2009, just as I predicted. And then people will still say, well, what does it matter? What does it matter that you predicted it? It matters that I was paying attention enough to things as they were going to happen and knowing that they were not going to allow the truth of the location of the Ark of the Covenant and all this stuff to be found. And one of the gentlemen, was it Gary Vay or I think it was Gary Vay. That dude had to go hide out in Vietnam for years because he was part of an archaeological team that was brought over to Yemen prior to 9/11. They were discovering all this proto Hebrew type language that had also been found in Colorado. And I went out to go and try and find that location where that language that was found in Yemen was found also exactly the same in Colorado. And guess what? That whole area has been appropriated by the military now, and it's part of a military base, and you can't access it. It used to be open to the general public. Same thing with this guy, Gary Vay. So they started making these huge discoveries over there. 9/11 happened. 9/11 happens. He gets on a plane to come back home. And Customs tells him that he's wanted for questioning from Homeland Security. And he says, well, I can't imagine why. Why would they want to talk to me? He said, sir, you have been in an Al-Qaeda training camp. And he said, no, I've not been in an Al-Qaeda training camp. I've been at an archaeological dig. They said, sir, our reports tell us you were in the middle. You have been occupying And he went to Vietnam where there's no extradition. And after I learned about that, I said, well, that'll be the next target, because we know that they target all of these ancient Middle Eastern sites that go back to the Anunnaki and go back to the ancient knowledge. And just like I've talked about the invasion of Iraq 2003 and what's going on with ISIS now, which of course is a wholly owned subsidiary of Mossad and the CIA and the rest of it. We all know that already. No need to even go there. Of course, that's why they're still destructing ancient sites right now as we speak. And again, I don't make these things and put them out there so somehow people get this fucked up, twisted thing because people, not everybody, certainly not our audience, but people, general public people, they think on such a low level that all they can do when they see me be right about something is say, oh, well, that's not something to be proud of. You predicted a bunch of people are going to get killed and get bombed. That's nothing to be proud of. Or you predicted this person was going to die of this. Well, again, that's not the point. You're trying to make it a point of something that's not even the point. The absolute point is that if you know what to look for and you see the information, anyone can have this ability. And speaking of that, here's a story about it. ISIS destroys Mashki and Nergal gates at the ancient site of Nineveh. Now, if you guys go back to my Lost Book of Enki readings, which you can buy a high-quality download of in our download shop, by the way, at my website, theglobalreality.com, you can remember these names. These are straight-up Anunnaki names. So this supposed terrorist group has nothing better to do over there. We're supposed to believe they have nothing better to do than go and destroy ancient sites over there. And we're led to believe, oh, they're just doing that because they're anti-Christians? I mean, that's what they tell us. They want to kill all Christians. They round up Christians and kill them up and execute them and blah, 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 blah. But yet they're destroying ancient sites which don't have a fucking fuck all anything to do with Christianity and actually are more in line with Middle Eastern religions. I mean, it just goes to show you how easily people are duped because they just don't know history. And they're too wrapped up in consensus material reality to ever question that most everything they were taught in school and most everything they've been taught their whole life is almost all a lie. National Geographic reports that Mashki and Nergal gates at the ancient site of Nineveh in Iraq have been destroyed by ISIS, according to photos obtained by the magazine. Michael Dante, a professor of archaeology at Boston University and co-director of the Cultural Heritage Initiative, which works with the State Department to record sites destroyed by ISIS, confirmed the destruction. Dante came to the conclusion after hearing of the destruction from reliable sources in Mosul and seeing photos available to the CHI in which an earth mover stands where the Nergal Gate once stood. Again, these CIA and Mossad controlled terrorist groups are destroying these ancient sites. Because when the U.S. military went over to Iraq after 9/11 in 2003, and they set up base camp, it was too brazen. They set up base camp on the ancient, Babylonian temple, and there was wanton destruction over there, and it was documented because there was fucking media everywhere. And it got too much attention. The cat got out of the bag. So what they needed now is they couldn't do this with Al-Qaeda. They needed another scapegoat, another group to blame it on. And what they've done now is they've created another group that can do all their dirty work. And even though they're ISIS supposedly doing this is, probably not even ISIS doing it. Are there any pictures of actual ISIS people in the act of doing this now? For all we know, this could be Blackwater or Z or whatever they're called now, or, other military contractor. Who knows? But the fact of the matter is they need a scapegoat. They need a patsy, someone to pin this destruction on. Because in those ancient lands and in those ancient texts lie information in those sites, which, just like the information I've covered in my Lost Secrets of Ancient America films, go against the established narrative of human history and religion and our past and where we came from and everything. But this is why they want to destroy it. And I've been covering this and talking about it till I'm blue in the face, and yet people still don't want to wrap their minds around it and get it. And they can't understand that stuff like, it's just like people who liked a lot of the other stuff I did, and then they kind of tuned out and didn't like my work anymore once I started talking about the secret rites stuff. And that's a pity, because those people are too short-sighted or too wrapped up in themselves to see that all this stuff connects. So, if you liked my secret rite work, but you didn't like Lost Secrets work, you're missing out. If you liked Lost Secrets up, but you don't think you're going to be that much into the spellcasters, which I'm working on now, you're missing out. All this stuff connects together. And it's all about creating this phony reality that we believe. Meanwhile, the real reality is obscured from us. And that's why I call these films the spellcasters. These people are literally black magicians who use their black magic workings in media and in films, and they use it in all aspects. Mind control, it's all there. The military uses it. All this stuff's going to be laid out in the film. So all these subjects, even though they may be seemingly unrelated, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, they all relate and they all tie together, and that's a fact. Spherical rock in Bosnia stirs controversy. An infamous would-be archaeologist is at it again, suggesting that some unique rock formations he has discovered in present-day Bosnia are proof of an ancient civilization that thrived there 1,500 years ago. Samir Osmanagic has been combing the hills around Viskosica since 2005, claiming the surrounding mountains could be part of a giant collection of pyramids that he said could be 15,000 years old. And this is, of course, Dr. Sam, who discovered the Bosnian pyramids. I met him year before last. He was here locally doing his presentation, and I walked in after it was over, and I had my DVDs in my hand to give to him. And I walked up to him, and I said, "Hi, Dr. Sam. He goes, "You're Josh Reeves." I mean, I was shocked. I mean, he knew right who I was. "Oh, I know all about you and your work. Oh, my gosh, it's so great to meet you. Finally, I get to meet you." And he just grabbed, like, ripped the DVDs out of. I mean, he was so excited to get them, and he found similar things that I found, like with the rock wall at the Bosnian pyramids. I mean, so many similarities from the fact that it produces piezoelectrical energy, just like the rock wall does, produces energy and current, to the fact that it's made of geopolymers, just like the rock wall is, which are, as I've talked about, these different minerals and crystals that are brought together and made into this almost indestructible mortar. And by the way, again, as I mentioned yesterday in yesterday's show, that's one of the things you'll get in our big mega prize pack, where $750 you'll get along with a sunset ruby, a palisite meteorite slice, and a piece of lanite in our, if you're our highest contributor to our operating cost budget this month. And yeah, I mean, this is a huge discovery. This thing, I mean, I can tell you everything I know about geology and about rocks and minerals. The media, of course, is trying to, just like they did the rock wall, they're trying to say this giant sphere rock that he's found is a natural formation. And the size of it and everything else, it's just absolutely impossible. It's definitely not a natural formation, but it's whatever it is, it's super old. Just like the rock wall and just like the Bosnian pyramids themselves. So, and he actually told me, I mean, maybe one day it'll happen if I ever had the budget, the money to do it. You know, I need thousands of dollars to be able to afford a trip. But he actually himself, you know, invited me and gave me his information and said, come to Bosnia, come and visit, come see me, come up there and spend some time and get into this thing with me, you know, and dig around. And I mean, he invited me full on, Dr. Sam himself. That would be something awesome to do sometime, to go and document that whole thing and almost make my own little film on the Bosnian pyramids, and, you know, go over there and interview him and go and see it and video all this stuff myself and put it together. That would be incredible. But it would take, you know, it would take a pretty good budget to be able to do that. Probably, you know, $6,000-7,000, but $6,000-7,000. That's not even a lot of money. I mean, people spend these mainstream documentaries, they spend $2 or $3 million making these things, and their information can't ever even compete with mine. You know, if I had their gear and their technical stuff along with my information, it'd be game over. But, you know, I do the best I can with what I've got here. The quad rotor drone that carries a warhead. The Rotem L, made by Israel Aerospace Industries. Oh, yeah, no surprise there. Looks like many other quad rotors buzzing around these days. It can fly for more than half an hour and is agile enough to go in and out of windows. It has a camera in the nose to give the operator a pilot's eye view, like the drones used for FPV racing. What Rotem has that those consumer gadgets don't is a warhead the size of 2 hand grenades. Yeah, this is, you know, this is the coming, not just autonomously controlled, but these things controlled by computer systems and killing people indiscriminately without a human giving orders to do so. I mean, this is how they'll pick off dissidents and everything in the not too distant future. I foresee them using these things to assassinate people and drop little mini bombs on people and kill them, and just blame it on things like gas leaks and, you know, innocuous stuff like that. And of course, the general public, just like they do with any of these other subjects that we talk about, be it the rock wall or Prince or anything else, will just say, oh, yeah, whatever. They won't even question it. Perfect weapon for picking off, you know, soft targets. Unbelievable stuff. Here's an article, and, you know, this may be a little different than some of the stuff I normally discuss, but it's about music and the music industry, and that's something I'm, you know, very much into. I'm a musician myself, and believe me, you think I know a lot about all this ancient history stuff? Let me tell you. You think I know a lot about this stuff? I have this same exact, even though I never get to flex it or use it, but I have the same encyclopedic knowledge of music as well. And a lot on films and movies too, but really music, man. I know a lot about this stuff. And in the volume 2 of the Spellcasters, it's going to focus more on the music industry stuff, even though the, you know, Hollywood and the film industry and the music industry really are kind of all the same in one entity. Because there's so much information, there needed to be two separate films. Otherwise, we would have been in a fucking middle of a 10-hour film or something. I don't know how long these movies are going to be anyway. But one of the things I've talked about and told people about for many years, because I've seen this stuff and I've heard about this stuff, and I'm just somebody, I'm a freak about music. So I'm one of those guys that, I'm into bootlegs and soundboard recordings and stuff. I listen to, everything, and I have a catalog of music. But one of the things I've told people about before, and this goes right in line with my spellcaster stuff, and right in line with all the rest of everything I talk about, how reality, as I mentioned earlier, reality that's presented to us that most people just take and swallow and don't think anything of, is a manipulated reality. And so much of that people know about through Hollywood and movies and TVs. They know about special effects, and they know that, things are not always what they seem to be when it comes to movies and TV shows and all that stuff. But a lot of people don't know that the same type of thing exists in the music world, where, you could be watching a band play live on stage. And this is not something new. I'm talking about this has been going on for decades. Decades. 40-something years, maybe longer, this has been going on, where you're watching a band live on stage. I'm talking about a big, big band, not just like a local band or something, like a big time touring act, a stadium act or an arena act or something. And you're watching the band, and you're hearing the music, and the way it's presented to you is you think that the band and the people and the music is just what you're seeing. And I'm talking about even before the use of, MIDI and sequencers and flying in vocals, which so many bands do these days. So much of what you see anyway these days in live shows is not 100% live. And that's been going on in live records and live albums for decades as well. I mean, a lot of the classic live albums that you think are live, from Kiss's Alive, album, one of the great live albums of all time, to Judas Priest's Unleashed in the East, which a lot of people call Unleashed in the Studio because, for the fact of the matter is, stuff happens in a live show and, it's mistakes happen. But a lot of people for years thought these live albums were just what they, were presented as, and they didn't know that actually they'd gone back and redone vocals in some cases. In fact, on Kiss's Alive album, the only thing on those albums that's live is the drums. That's it. They dubbed in, they multi-tracked 3 different sources of audience screams from 3 different shows and layered them on top of each other so they sound thicker. They stripped everything out except the drums, and then rebuilt all the guitar tracks and bass tracks and vocal tracks in the studio, mixed in some reverb with it, and hey, it sounds like a fucking live album. Judas Priest, Unleashed in the East, same thing. You listen to that album, it's a fucking phenomenal live album. Sounds amazing. Well, the only thing, everything on it's live except Rob Halford's vocal. Supposedly the story is something happened, his vocals got destroyed, so they took the vocal track out. He went into the studio with the recording of the show, and he just sang it live at one time, and they put it on there. But still, they didn't, make people know that. People only really found out about that over the past 10 years or so. But besides that, bands also have supplemental musicians, people playing guitar, people singing, so that they'll have, and oftentimes hidden away, because they don't want you to see it, because they don't want to tarnish the illusion of the product that they're trying to sell you. I remember listening to this was years and years ago when I first kind of got hip to this. I'd heard it was a bootleg recording or something, like a soundboard recording. It was Fleetwood Mac on the Rumors tour. And I forget what song it was, but if you know anything about Fleetwood Mac, especially during that time with Stevie Nicks, Fleetwood Mac was around for years and years and years prior even to Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham joining the band. They were a blues band, But they only ever had one guitar player. That's all they ever had. Lindsey Buckingham, they had, a few others, but they only ever had at any given time one person playing guitar. A guitar, bass, drums, keyboards. And I remember hearing this bootleg one time, and you could hear Lindsey Buckingham playing this, finger-picked electric guitar part. And clearly, at the same exact time, you could hear an acoustic guitar going. And I looked and I searched, and I remember trying to see. Of course, now, over the past, I guess, 10, 20 years, they have other people, Fleetwood Mac has other people on stage with them not hidden. But back then, just from hearing how they have another person on stage, off stage somewhere. And I talked to people about that. Oh, no, you're crazy. This. Kiss, the same thing. Kiss had a guy that played guitar for them off stage and there was rumors that Gene Simmons didn't play bass, and he had a guy under there playing his bass lines. No one ever got caught doing that, but there was a guy who got caught. They had a film crew out to film one of their shows during the Hot in the Stage tour, or Hot in the Shade tour, and nobody told the camera crew they weren't supposed to follow this guy around, and they followed this guy, this guitar player, around, and they exposed on this show that Kiss had this guy playing guitar and had him hidden away under the stage. They present this thing of four guys, making all the sound, and meanwhile, inadvertently, here's this guy hidden under. What would be the advantage of having somebody hidden? Why not just have another guitar player out there? Just say, hey, this is somebody helping us out so we can sound fuller. Nobody's going to care about that. But it goes to show you at what great lengths they go to keep the illusion. And there's this article here. The reason I mentioned this, it came out back in February in the LA Weekly. You can do a search. The name of the article is Inside the Strange and Hidden World of Offstage Touring Musicians. And it talks about how back in, and I actually saw this tour. This is what's crazy. I saw this tour, and I can remember it was the Ozzy. Ozzy back in it's about 20 years ago. He did like a retirement tour, and then he did came out later and did Retirement Sucks or something, came back out. And he had the album Osmosis. I remember that was the album he was touring on. I think that was probably the last time I saw Ozzy. That's been 20 years. Yeah, 1995, it's been 20 years. There was a band that was unknown that opened for him that nobody at that time knew. It was a brand new band. It was Korn. But I remember I saw Ozzy on that tour, and I remember thinking, God, his voice sounds. They use all kinds of processors and vocal processors, and Ozzy's been known to use a lot of automatic. This technique the Beatles really pioneered. It's called automatic double tracking. And it's a way to make your voice sound like you put a little delay and you run one bus out to another track, and basically it thickens up the voice and makes it sound doubled. And Ozzy's been really employing that type of effect for years. And there's a variety of ways you can do it. You can use an Eventide processor, Eventide harmonizer, and whatnot. But I remember seeing that tour and thinking, God, his voice just sounded strange. It sounded like it had a lot of effects on it. Well, come to find out now what this article talks about, Inside the Strange and Hidden World of Offstage Musicians, it looked like a big black tent offstage right and behind the bass bin speakers in a Stockholm arena. Ozzy Osbourne's crew had set up a portable vocal booth. Inside the booth's blackened curtained exterior was a microphone and a stand, a floor wedge monitor, and an intercom to communicate directly with the sound engineer. The booth also contained a video monitor scrolling lyrics to Osbourne's metallic solo hits like Crazy Train and Black Sabbath classics like War Pigs from the bottom of the top of the screen. 2 weeks later, Robert Mason came home to his Tempe, Arizona apartment to find a message on his answering machine from Osbourne's wife and hard-nosed manager Sharon Osbourne. You fucking wait until you see what I'm going to unleash on her in Spokecasters 2. My God. I'm not even going to talk about it until I can get it made. Let me just give you a little teaser, a little hint about it. Randy Rhoads didn't die in a plane crash by accident. Okay, and I'm gonna show you the proof. And guess what? It ties right back into my little CMP stuff again, all nice and neat, unbelievable. Sharon's message went something like, "We want to know if you'd be interested in doing live vocals on tour, backgrounds, harmonies, that kind of stuff. Call me back." Ozzy had just released his latest album, Osmosis, on October 24th, 1995, and was touring in support of the LP. Mason, a talented singer influenced by humble pie as Steve Marriott, had been doing session work in Los Angeles for Grammy-winning producer Keith Olsen, who also produced Ozzy's 1988 disc No Rest for the Wicked. Olsen also had produced hard rock combo Lynch Mob's 1992 self-titled album, which featured Mason on vocals. So apparently what happened prior to that, to the best of my knowledge, was Sharon was calling around to producers asking who would fit the bill. And 2 out of 3 of the 4 calls she made, my name came up. So Mason called Sharon back to let her know he wanted the job. And a few weeks later, he was in Stockholm for his first sound check looking at the big black tent. He doesn't remember being told before then that he'd actually be doing his singing off stage. See, of course not. Right? You know, they call this guy up, hey, you want to sing? I mean, could you imagine just being some unknown studio guy and Sharon Osbourne calls you up and says, you know, I mean, she had to know that that guy knew, as most probably anybody knows, that Ozzy's never had anybody singing backup vocals for him or anything, you know. He had to have thought that was odd. But of course, they didn't tell him beforehand he was going to be hidden. They just told him, oh, you're going to come sing with Ozzy. And he was like, oh, great. It never really mattered to me whether I was going to be on stage, Mason says, calling from a Nashville recording session. Yeah, he's now the singer for Warrant. Ugh, they were terrible. I was over the moon in every sense of the word to be able to do that Ozzy gig. The first sound check, Mason sang one song with Ozzy. Can't remember for sure which one, but possibly the Searing I Don't Know. And then Oz looked over at me on stage right, put 2 thumbs up and said, okay, you're in. And he just walked off stage. And from then on, I was gone for the next 11 months. At Sharon's request, Mason's presence on the tour was kept pretty quiet because, you know, the first thing everybody would say is, oh, Ozzy can't sing anymore. He's got a guy singing backstage for him, which was not what was going on. When asked for a comment as to why Ozzy used an offstage singer at the time, and if he still used offstage musicians, Sharon Osbourne replied via email through a publicist, why are we talking about something that happened 20 years ago? God, she's a wretched fucking old cunt. Ugh, she really is. If you don't believe me and believe that when I say that, you will once you see what I've uncovered. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. So she's all butthurt about it. So she did this. She was probably her idea from Jump Street. And now she doesn't want to talk about it now because people have found out about it. You see, this is, again, that's the point of why I bring this up. This is all a part of these people's, and the people that get in on the inside like that, like Sharon Osbourne, those are the people that, even though they really don't have any power, well, unless you're, you know, mob connected, we'll just leave it at that. But this is how these people, you know, feel that they have power over people, by being on the inside of the manipulation. And if you pay the ridiculous amount of money, and I think back then, 20 years ago, I probably paid $25 or $30, something like that. It wasn't real good seats. It wasn't bad to see Ozzy. Now it's probably, I don't know how much they're charging now. Probably $150, $300 a ticket. And they, you know, they have the arrogance to think that we shouldn't be talking about something that happened 20 years ago, but yet we're the people paying prices to go to these tickets. I mean, I haven't seen Ozzy in 20 years. I wouldn't go see Ozzy or Black Sabbath. I'd love to see Black Sabbath doing their final tour, but of course, again, because of Sharon Cunt, she wouldn't pay Bill Ward. She wanted Ozzy to make the most money, and she wanted the rest of the Black Sabbath guys, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward, to get paid like hired hand musicians. And Bill Ward was straight up. He said, like, I want to do this. This is an unsignable contract. I can't sign this. I'm not going to get paid. And of course, this is, going to be the final tour. So thanks to Sharon, we are never going to see the original Black Sabbath lineup ever again, because she wouldn't pay the 4 original members of Black Sabbath the fucking creators of heavy metal an equal share. And how much money does that cunt need at her age? You can't take it with you, you old bag, and you certainly can't spend it all. And again, this is a microcosm of all the issues we discuss and talk about on the show and in the films and everything else. If this kind of manipulation, having singers in curtain boxes and guitar players hidden under the stage is going on a small level in the music industry, folks, what do you think is going on at the levels of, say, the political presidential campaign like we're seeing going on now? That's the point, and that's why it's important, and that's why this work I'm doing into the Spellcasters Volume 1 and Volume 2 is so vitally important, and it's, again, why it's so vitally important that you support my work and everything that we do here. We're going to wrap it up there, folks. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and being here with us. Again, we've got to reach 100% of our operating cost goal here in the next couple of days. I don't want to be down at red alert level again, wondering how we're going to do this, because this film is too important. I need to stay focused on this. So please go and contribute and help us reach our goal. And get in the running for this great prize pack. Get yourself some downloads, a subscription. Just do what you got to do and support our work ASAP right now today. Don't delay. And we'll see you back here tomorrow for another show. My name's Josh Reeves. You guys take care.